Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to take a look at another Walking with Dinosaurs figure. This is one that I have not reviewed, obviously, I am now, but when it comes to the original line of Toyway releases, there are a few remaining that I have not actually taken the time out to review, like the Stegosaurus, the Iguanodon, and of course this one, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and there are also a few others that I have not reviewed either. And one figure I will never review because it's not something that's even remotely possible to get my hands on, which would be the Ornithocheirus, which is maybe the hardest figure in this line to, well, not even maybe, definitely the hardest figure in this line to find. And since this line is an older line and is now retired and has been for quite some time, it makes it fairly difficult at times to get a hold of some of the releases, and some of course are worse than others, and one of which I would say, as far as rarity goes, would be the T-Rex. I feel like the T-Rex is oftentimes a little harder to find than some of the others. Like the Utah Raptor is fairly common, kind of. I mean, you'll still pay a pretty penny for it, but it's not like it's as rare as like the Liopleurodon or even the T-Rex, although the T-Rex I don't think is quite as rare as the Liopleurodon. But unfortunately, you will see one thing. First of all, I did have this propped up with a stand because the T-Rex has horrible balance, and even though it has actually a little extra support here for the foot, it does not stand well. You'll also see a few scuffs and stuff as we move through the figure, and that is maybe one of the most common things for this T-Rex figure, is to have scuffed paint. I don't know what it is about this figure, but it just did not hold its paint well, and loses it quite easily with any type of nick on the figure. But I will say, when it comes to capturing the likeness of the T-Rex from Walking with Dinosaurs, this is a fairly decent version. I think the one aspect of this Rex that doesn't quite line up with the film is the way that the skin texture looks, and of course the paint apps, because you're never going to get picture perfect high quality paint apps from a mass produced toy like this. But when it comes to the T-Rex in Walking with Dinosaurs, one of the things that you'll notice is kind of like, almost, I guess you could say, if you were to apply a white wash to this, it should creep in and out of all of the black scales, and that's kind of what you see on the dinosaur in the film. But this does not have the type of skin texture that would allow that to occur. So basically they just went ahead and gave it the dark tones that you see, like the basic gist of the paint apps and the color scheme of this T-Rex. But here in the head sculpt, I would say they've captured it fairly decently. Like, it definitely resembles the T-Rex for the most part from Walking with Dinosaurs. You do have some okay paintwork here in the face with some darker tones. You can see like a mixture of dark grays and blacks that have been applied, as well as a little variation of brown, which you can see as you get closer to the nostrils. Of course, you can see the nostrils themselves. The mouth is slightly open, which gives us a chance to see the teeth as well as the tongue in there. The paintwork is okay as far as that goes. It's nothing overly impressive, and in some areas you can see like the white has kind of run up into the upper jaw of the T-Rex. Again, just a little bit of sloppiness to the paintwork. But that is also fairly common for these Walking with Dinosaurs figures. We can see the eyes are painted with a red-orange, given a black pupil. They are a little bit sloppy, but not too bad. But for the most part, I think it looks alright here in the head sculpt, especially, again, for the time that this figure was released. As you move back here into the neck, you can see the skin texture kind of switch it up as far as the way it works and the way it looks, but you'll also continue to notice, again, the little variations of color as we kind of switch back and forth between a dark gray and some blacks and stuff that have been applied pretty smoothly throughout the course of the figure. We do also have a little bit of like a reddish sort of a tone on the underside of the lower jaw moving into the throat, which again is exactly what you would see on the Walking with Dinosaurs T-Rex. Also, we can see inside the mouth here. I didn't even show you guys that. There's not really any detail in there, but obviously you can see some okay paintwork, as they have captured again with like that pinkish tone or like peach tone for the inside of the mouth. But there are some skin wrinkles and folds and stuff, as well as like some osteoderm-like scales as you move down through the course of the body. As you lead into the main body of the dinosaur, you can kind of make out the shoulder blade a little bit right there, and you'll also see, of course, the nice arm sculpt and some more skin wrinkles and stuff leading off of the stomach as you lead down into the hands. The nails are painted with a black, but again, some of the paint seems to have been kind of scuffed off of this one a little bit. As you move up into the stomach, you can get a nice sense of the rib cage of the dinosaur. Again, some more skin wrinkles and folds and stuff, and just basically like kind of like cracks and crevices for the majority of the skin texture of this one. Again, the really nice kind of black patterning that you can see, really subtle as far as its application moving through. Lots and lots of osteoderms all over this dinosaur at this point, though. As we move back into the leg, you can see again the hip bone right here, some more osteoderms, and even more osteoderms kind of trailing down into the thigh. We can see the muscle definition nicely displayed right there. There is the kneecap in the front of the leg and a nice bulging calf muscle in the back of the leg. Another osteoderm kind of like trailing down here before basically disappearing as you lead down into the foot sculpt. There are some scoots moving down the toes. Again, moving down, you'll see more mixtures of dark grays and blacks, but you do see a little bit of a black striping as you move down like the shin into the ankle. And again, moving into the foot sculpt, you can see the nails are painted with a black as well. And as we move back up and we lead out into the tail, this is where the majority of the figure kind of lightens up a little bit as we have this light gray. Basically, you see on the underside, but that kind of overtakes a bit of the side of the tail. And then you have like a light striping effect that leads out with the ending of the tail overtaken with the black. And I think that looks okay. Again, the skin texture continues to look all right, but not anything overly impressive. When you look at it from the opposing side, it pretty much looks the same because it is in a neutral pose as the Walking with Dinosaurs figures usually are. As you move out, the only real difference that I think you'll see on this side compared to the other side is the fact that one foot has a little earthy area under here that is meant to basically help the dinosaur stand and prop it up, but it actually doesn't work very well at all. And in fact, these dinosaurs are quite prone to warped legs and stuff and having poor balance. I actually have had 3 of these T-Rex figures now. I did get rid of one. I did send one to my friend Marco Makes at one point, but none of them stand well, so it's just apparently a fairly common trend with these figures. But as you move back, you can again see some more striping and stuff, leading out some more of the light tone of color. But it is a pretty cool figure, definitely a fun one to have in your collection if you are a fan of Walking with Dinosaurs. And the plus side to this is this stand that I have here. I think it's a PNSO stand. Yes, definitely works really well for balancing the dinosaur quite nicely. But for a length, you are looking at about 9 3/4, maybe a hair over, or around 25 centimeters. And then for a height, about 4 1/4 inches, maybe a little bit over that, or right around 11 centimeters, pretty much on the dot. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon in the Collect Day human being next to our Toyway Walking with Dinosaurs Tyrannosaurus Rex. And as you can see, again, it's not gigantic. It's nowhere near the size range of Mr. Papo T-Rex or anything like that, which definitely tells you that it's not like 1/35th scale or anything, which is a pretty standard scale for, many Tyrannosaur figures. Which again also shows you that this is a bit on the smaller side, but if you are familiar with the Toyway Walking with Dinosaurs, it's roughly in the same size range as many of the other figures in that line. We also have a comparison with a Mattel Velociraptor just to show you that the T-Rex is a little bit bigger than a standard Mattel Raptor. And if we bring in the Safari LTDU Tyrannus, you can now see that that figure is definitely a bit smaller, so we'd have to increase the size a bit of our dinosaur to kind of hit the mark for the size range of the Walking with Dinosaurs T-Rex. So to do that, we've gone ahead and grabbed the PNSO Albertosaurus, and you can see these two are very similar in size. So if you do have the Albertosaurus, you're going to have a rough idea of the size of this Toyway T-Rex. And it's pretty close to the same situation if you bring in the PNSO Daspletosaurus as well, with the T-Rex being only slightly larger. So this Toyway Walking with Dinosaurs Tyrannosaurus Rex is a pretty fun figure, but it's definitely not a masterpiece or anything like that. It's basically the same type of figure you see the entire way through with the Toyway Dinosaurs, again the Toyway Walking with Dinosaurs line, which I think does feature some really fun figures and is an officially licensed Walking with Dinosaurs toy line, which does make it pretty cool. Again, it's nice to have that actual official license on them. And I think the T-Rex is a pretty fun one, though I will say it's one of the figures that I feel like isn't all that incredible when it comes to the paint apps. None of them really are, but I feel like some are better than others. The T-Rex is basically just, some varying dark tones and then a little bit of a lighter tone on the underside with a slight hint of brown in the snout. And that's basically about it when it comes to the color of this one. But I think it looks, again, okay. The application of the paint is fairly smooth, a little sloppiness here and there, but not too bad. The overall sculpt does definitely sport the appearance of a Walking with Dinosaur style T-Rex, and I think that also looks quite nice. The fine detail, again, isn't super impressive. Like, it's okay but fairly generic as a whole, and of course doesn't quite capture the actual skin texture you would see on the T-Rex in the show, but it is what it is. Again, it's just a pretty cool looking toy version of the Walking with Dinosaurs T-Rex, and I quite like it. Again, as I said though, it is a little bit touchy when it comes to the paint apps, so if you do get one and you actually have it in decent shape, be very careful with it, because anytime you even tap it on something, it's going to chip the paint. The paint just falls off of this like crazy, so something to keep in mind if you do get a hold of one. But of course, if you are interested, your best bet is to search it out on eBay or Mercari or anywhere like that. You can buy things secondhand, because the chances of finding this one are, well, I wouldn't say slim. I do see it pop up quite often. You won't find it new, at least for a decent price. Like, I have seen some people put them up, in box still, but it's like a mountain of money to be able to afford one of those, and they don't come around very often. But you definitely wouldn't find one new in like a retail store unless it's like an old toy shop or something. So just, again, search around. Hopefully you can locate one. If you can, I would say pick it up if it's not too hefty of a price tag. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.